Hi everyone, thanks for checking out my talk. So our paper is titled Quantum Query to Communication Simulation Requires Logarithmic Overhead, and this is joint work with Saurav Chakrabarti, Arkadev Chattopadhyay and Manasvi Parashar. So here's the outline of the talk. So the title involves the words quantum query and quantum communication complexity, which I'll introduce in the first part, after which I'll immediately be able to state our main theorem. So the main theorem involves construction of a function that witnesses an upper bound and a lower bound, and some technical prerequisites I'll describe in this section, after which I will describe our function construction, followed by the upper bound and lower bound and some conclusions. Right. So let's get into what the query model and the communication model of our interest is. So in this figure, I've drawn a deterministic decision tree. So we're going to talk about the decision tree model. So this is a model of computation right now in the classical world. So this decision tree takes as input a 5-bit string and outputs a value in -1, 1. And the way it evaluates on this input is it first queries the first bit x1. If that's -1, go down the right subtree. If it's 1, go down the left subtree, and continue until you hit a leaf and output that value. So this decision tree computes the function f, this function f, in the natural way. And the cost of the tree is just the depth of the tree. And we can also consider randomized decision trees, which are distributions over deterministic decision trees. Alternatively, you can view randomized decision trees as deterministic decision trees with additional coin flip nodes inserted as nodes. And when computing the cost, we don't count the coin flip nodes towards the depth of the tree. And this view will be useful for the next slide, where I define the decision tree or query complexity of functions. So the deterministic decision tree complexity or the deterministic query complexity of f is the minimum depth of a deterministic decision tree that computes f. And the randomized query complexity is the minimum depth of a randomized decision tree that computes f. So when I say a tree computes f in the deterministic world, I mean on all inputs. So t of x must equal f of x for all inputs x. And in the randomized world, it's you require for all inputs that the probability of the correct answer being output is at least 2/3. Okay, so now let's look at how the quantum query model looks. This is slightly different. It's easier to phrase in a different setting, not the decision tree setting as I was doing for the classical ones. So in this world, again, the setup is same. You're given a known function f, an unknown input x, and you wish to compute f of x. So a quantum query algorithm looks as follows. It comprises a predetermined start state, psi naught, followed by a bunch of unitaries. And so these unitaries are applied to psi naught. So here UIs are unitaries that do not depend on the input. And these OX are oracle queries, oracle unitaries, which are the equivalent of the nodes in the trees in the previous graph. So this is the analog of that. And so a quantum query algorithm comprises of the start state, a sequence of unitaries, and the way it operates is it performs these unitaries on the start state and output measures and outputs a particular bit. And so I just want to note here that this OX query is a generalization of the classical queries. So in particular, you can feed into it an index I, and it's going to output the value xi. And not only this, it can perform a superposition of such queries over all the indices. So the quantum query algorithm, this query algorithm is said to compute f if the prob for all inputs x again, for the probability of the algorithm outputting the correct answer is f of x is at least 2/3. And the cost of the algorithm is the number of invocations of this oracle query OX. And again, just as before, the quantum query complexity of F is the minimum cost of a quantum query algorithm that computes F. Good. So now let's get into communication complexity. First, I'll talk a little bit about the classical world. So in this model, there are two parties, Alice and Bob. They wish to compute a known function F and whose inputs are distributed between them. So Alice is given an n-bit string, Bob is given an n-bit string. Alice cannot see Bob's string and Bob cannot see Alice's string, and their goal is to output f of x comma y. So here I describe a protocol of cost k. Alice on input x, depending on her input and the function, sends a message m1 to Bob. Bob sees m1 and then sends a message m2 to Alice. This m2 can depend on m1, his input y, and the function f. And this proceeds for k rounds, say, and Bob sends mk to Alice, after which they agree on an answer, so pi of xy. So the output is pi of xy, which is in -1, 1. So this is a protocol of cost k. And in the deterministic model, it's exactly what I described on the previous slide. And the protocol is said to compute a function f if for all inputs xy, the protocol outputs the correct answer. In the randomized world, Alice and Bob additionally have access to public randomness, and the correctness requirement is just like in the query world, it's a worst case correctness requirement that the probability for all xy, the probability of the protocol outputting the correct answer is at least 2/3. And the cost of these protocols again is over worst case inputs, and in the randomized case, worst case randomness output as well. And the quantum communication complexity model, Alice and Bob additionally can share prior entanglement, unlimited prior entanglement in fact, and communicate using qubits. The correctness requirement is again probability of the protocol outputting the correct answer is at least 2/3. Great. So now that I've described the quantum query model and the quantum communication model, let's talk about how these are linked naturally. So given a function in the query world, how does one naturally come up with a function in the communication world? And here's probably one of the most natural ways. If you're given an n-bit function in the query world, this is a 2n-bit function in the communication world. And the communication game would be Alice is given x1, x2 to xn, Bob is given y1, y2 to yn, and Alice and Bob wish to compute f composed with XOR. So what is an efficient protocol, a communication protocol for f of XOR, given an efficient query algorithm or an efficient decision tree for f? So for this slide, we're just concerned about the classical models, deterministic and randomized. So suppose you had a decision tree for f, and one of the nodes, let's say this root node queried the first index of f. So I'm going to construct here, given a decision tree for f, a decision tree for f of XOR. So if the decision tree for f queried the first variable, say z1, the decision tree for f of XOR is going to query x1 XOR y1. So whenever a node queries the ith index of f in a decision tree for f, the corresponding decision tree for f of XOR would query xi XOR yi. And it's not hard to see that this is indeed a decision tree, a valid decision tree for f of XOR. And how do we convert this into a communication protocol? So each node would just correspond to 2 bits of communication between Alice and Bob as follows. So we obtain that the deterministic communication complexity of f of XOR is at most 2 times the deterministic communication complexity of f. And the same argument runs, the argument runs the same way for the randomized case. Randomized communication complexity of f of XOR is at most 2 times the randomized communication, the randomized query complexity of F. This also holds when XOR is replaced by AND or any other 2-bit gadget, because they could use 2 bits to communicate even AND or whatever 2-bit function is present there. So what's a natural analog of this in the quantum world? So it turns out that the argument, this constant factor, we have to give it up. So Burman, Cleve, and Wigderson showed in '98 that the sort of natural simulation in the quantum world requires a log n blow up over here. So the quantum communication complexity of F of any 2-bit gadget is at most the quantum query complexity of F times log n. And this is sort of capturing the power of quantum query algorithms, wherein you can query superpositions of bits. So conceptually, the idea is that at each node, if you were to imagine a quantum algorithm being a decision tree, at each node, Alice and Bob would potentially be sending across superpositions of n many bits, which would require log n qubits. So let me not get into more detail here. And a natural question is this log n factor necessary? Or can we actually reach the same blow up required in the classical world, which is just a constant? So this is going to be the central question we're attacking in this work. Can we get rid of that log n overhead, order log n overhead? So it turns out that for when the function is disjointness, which does fit in this framework, which is OR of AND, this log n factor is not required. In fact, you can get it down to a constant. So it was shown in a series of works here. And the question we're interested in is this actually true for all functions? And our main work is no. In fact, there is a function for which the overhead required is omega log n. So that's maximal. So to the best of our knowledge, even before our work, it wasn't even known whether the overhead could be made any super constant. Like, does there exist a function for which quantum communication complexity of F of, say, XOR is omega QF times spawn omega 1? And we show that there is a function that requires a maximal overhead. Okay, so now that I've stated the main theorem, let me talk about a little bit, 2 slides of preliminaries, and then I'll exhibit the function that witnesses this maximal overhead requirement, talk a little bit about the upper bound, a little bit about the lower bound, and then conclude. Okay, so I'm going to skip through this quickly, since you have the benefit of pausing this video whenever you want. You can just pause it and stare at the slides. So every function f from -1, 1 to the n to reals has a unique multilinear expansion called the Fourier expansion as follows. And the spectral norm of f is just the sum of absolute values of the coefficients in this expansion. Right. So these are this is an exact measure of f. Now let's talk about approximation theoretic measures of f. So let's first talk about the approximate degree. So you go over all polynomials p that approximate f pointwise to error epsilon. So all real polynomials p that approximate f pointwise to error epsilon. So that's in the uniform norm or the infinity norm, if you wish. And minimize the degree of such polynomials p, and that's called the approximate degree of f. And analogously, the epsilon approximate spectral norm is defined as the minimum spectral norm of a polynomial that approximates f pointwise to error epsilon. And throughout this talk, we're going to be epsilon is going to equal 1/3. Right. So here are 2 results that help in lower bounding quantum query complexity and quantum communication complexity in terms of approximation theoretic measures. So first, Beals, Burman, Cleve, Mosca, and DeWolf showed that the approximate degree of f is upper bounded above by the quantum query complexity up to a factor of 2. So this gives us a really nice tool to give lower bounds on the quantum query complexity of f, since approximate degree is a more classical notion and is typically easier to deal with. And in the same flavor, Lee and Schreibman showed that the quantum communication complexity of f of xr is bounded below by the log of the approximate spectral norm of f. So we're going to be using these. Great. So now let me describe the function that we use to exhibit our main theorem. That, yeah. So again, our main theorem is quantum communication. There exists a function f for which the quantum communication complexity of f of xr is omega quantum query complexity of f times log n. And the way we prove this is via this sequence of equalities. The first one is just follows by the result of Lee and Schreibman, which I mentioned on the previous slide. And this one can consider our main theorem. We show that the approximate spectral norm of f is bounded below by the approximate degree in this way. And this log n factor is what is crucial to our result. And I should mention that the construction of the function f along with the query upper bound is heavily inspired from a work of Ambainis and de Wolf. Okay, so let me describe the function. So the function looks like a composed function. Let me justify in the next slide or two why I use this word like. So it's a composed function. It's like a composed function where the outer function is parity and the inner function is a modification of the addressing function. Now in the next slide, I'll describe what the addressing function is. And then in a few slides after that, I should be able to tell you what the modification is. So here's what the regular addressing function is defined as. It's defined as a function whose input is log t plus t many bits. The log t bits are called the address bits, and the t bits, these t bits are called the addressee bits or the target bits. So this log t bits, so on an input of length log t plus t, this log t bit string corresponds to some integer between 1 and t. So it's the binary representation of some integer between 1 and t. So look at that position in the target bits, in the target bit, and output that value. So this is how the function operates. So just as an example, let's suppose log t was 3. And this was the input. So 0, 1, 1 are the address bits. This corresponds to the integer 3. So the output of the whole function would be the third target bit. So which is a 0 in this case. So here's how we are going to modify the addressing function. So let me first describe what Hadamard code words are. So for a string I in -1, 1 to the log t, the ith Hadamard code word is an enlisting of the parities of all substrings of I. So let me give you an example. So suppose log t was equal to 2 and I was equal to 1, -1. So the empty parity on I is always 1. Chi1 of I is exactly the first variable, which is 1. Chi2 of I is the second variable, which is -1. And Chi1, 2 of I is the product of the two, which is -1. So the ith Hadamard code word in this case is 1, 1, -1, -1. And the number of Hadamard code words is t, 1 for each I in -1, 1 to the log t. So in the next few slides, when I refer to the ith Hadamard code word, I would interchangeably be viewing I as a string in -1, 1 to the log t, and also an integer between 1 and t. Okay, so here's how we modify the addressing function. So instead of log t plus t many input bits, it has 2 t input bits. T of them are the address bits, and t of them are the addressee or target bits. And the function operates as follows. If the address bits do not form, let's say, sorry, if the address bits do not form one of the t Hadamard code words that I described on the previous slide, then output a special symbol called phi. So this is a partial function. And if it does, if x1 to xt is a Hadamard code word, say the ith Hadamard code word, then look at the ith index of the target bits and output the value there. So output yi if x1 to xt is the ith Hadamard code word. And one fact that we're going to crucially require, or one algorithm, is the Bernstein-Vazirani algorithm, which is a quantum query algorithm, which uses only one quantum query and does the following. So it takes as input x1, it takes as input a t-bit string x1 to xt, and if that input is a Hadamard code word, say the ith Hadamard code word, then the algorithm returns I with probability 1. And we don't really care about what the algorithm, we don't care about what the algorithm outputs if it is x1 to xt is not a Hadamard code word, and we'll see later how we can handle this. So now finally I can describe our function. So our function looks as follows. It's a parity of t many copies of this modified addressing function that I described on this slide here. So note that these addressing functions are all partial. So they can output phi's, the special symbol phi. So the way this function capital F is defined, it's a total function, is that if any of the inputs to this parity is phi, then output -1. Else output parity of the bits input to it. So that's how we make it a total function. So it's a function on 2t square many bits. Good. So now that I've described the function, I'll be able to tell you about our upper bound and our lower bound. So the upper bound is the quantum query complexity of this is order t, and in fact, it turns out to be theta t. So I'll not go over this bound in full detail. I do have the slides here in case any of you want to pause and look at the details. So there are two phases to this algorithm. The first is the guess phase, and the second is the check phase. So the guess phase is going to, so this is a quantum query algorithm for this function with cost t again. So the guess phase is going to guess whether all of these X strings are actually Hadamard code words. And you're going to use the Bernstein-Vazirani algorithm there. One query for each, there's T many queries. And the check phase is going to check whether this algorithm, the output from the guess phase is actually correct. So whether these indeed are Hadamard code words. And then if the check phase succeeds, then you want to query the relevant target bits, selected target bits in yi. And yeah, that's the algorithm. So here is the analysis, and the complexity, the analysis of the complexity of the algorithm is the first guess phase uses one query for each addressing function, which is t queries. And the check phase involves a Grover search on two t square bit strings, which takes order root t square, which is order t queries. And then if the check phase succeeds, we have to query t many target bits. So the quantum query complexity is order t. It's worth noting that the quantum query complexity of f is also omega t, because the function is it's like a composed function, but it's at least as hard as parity t, because parity t is the outer function. Okay, so we showed that the quantum query complexity of capital F is order t. Now let's move on to the lower bound. So the goal is to show that the quantum communication complexity of f of xor is omega t log t. And we're going to use Lee and Schreibman's result for this. And using ideas from Chattopadhyay and Mande's work from 2017, we're going to show that the approximate spectral norm of any function g of addressing is lower bounded by its approximate degree in this way. So in that work, we showed that this sort of inequality holds true when the inner function is the regular addressing function on log t plus t many bits. And in this work, we're able to show that it does actually hold true for our Hadamard code words based addressing function as well. So if we do show this, this would immediately follow because it's well known that the approximate degree of parity is on t bits is omega t in fact. So if I was to tell you a 2-line proof idea, it would be as follows. It would just be the proof is by a contradiction. Suppose not, we would consider a polynomial p, which is an approximant to f, and that has small spectral norm. And using a series of arguments, we extract a polynomial q that approximates parity well. And Minsky and Papert showed in a classical work that this is not possible. So here's the idea of the proof. Again, I'm going to sketch the proof very quickly. So this is our function where the left blocks of each addressing are the address bits and the right blocks are the target bits. So we're first going to define it. So let P approximate this function to error 1/3 and have small spectral norm. So we first define a distribution on the address bits that are only supported on the Hadamard code words. And given an element of this distribution, this corresponds, so these Hadamard code words select a single bit, target bit from each block, right? And so a monomial of P is called relevant if it doesn't contain any unselected target variable, target bit. So our main lemma is as follows, that you can find an assignment A from the support of this distribution such that the high degree monomials in P have very low spectral norm. So we're going to fix such an assignment A and drop relevant monomials of high degree. And so the restricted function P approximates the restricted F. And note that by the way from the way we defined our distribution, F restricted to A is just parity on the selected target variables. So what I've written here is not quite true because there still are high degree irrelevant monomials in this restriction P restricted to A, and we use another trick to get rid of them. So, yeah. So here's the summary of the talk. So our main result was there exists a total function f. So there were results known for previously for partial functions or for different query and communication models, but this is yeah. So we exhibit a total function f for which this bound holds. This quantum query to communication simulation requires logarithmic overhead. So this is in stark contrast with the classical models where this overhead is just a constant for all functions. And one more interesting thing to note is that classical query algorithms induce approximating polynomials of low spectral norm. And our work also shows that the quantum world, this does not happen by combining this equality along with this equality. So we show that there exists a function capital F, the same function that we constructed, such that the approximate spectral norm is omega q of f times log n. So a natural open question that arises is from our work is, what is the quantum communication complexity of f of and? So for the same function f, or in general, can this log n overhead also be exhibited by and functions? Yeah. Thanks for watching. Stay safe.